Hello everyone, it is me, Atari HMB, and yes, we finally did it. We have reached the peak of 1,000 subscribers. And I'm quite happy to say that. Specifically because now that we're at 1,000 subscribers, it's time to finally make the announcement of something I've been preparing, and that is Patreon. That's right, I finally made my own Patreon, and you can find it in the link in the description below. I primarily started this Patreon because in order to do this YouTube thing for full time or to be able to do it a lot more commonly, I definitely am going to need some support, generally because it takes up a lot of time, and as many other of you viewers know, it isn't something I will have as much time to do if I have to go back into working a full time. Keep in mind, I am now officially working on a webcomic, and here is the official art of it. As you can see, the official art of the webcomic is called Evive, Son of Levi. That's right, and it can all be found on the Patreon with the many benefits, which also includes video requests that I will soon be taking, and you'll be able to see that in one of the tiering systems below. But without further ado, let's begin the long and awaited video for the 1,000 subscribers special, and that is Yu Yu Hakusho ranking the classes. S-Class Demons. Yeah, I know it's been a long and waited for, but it's about time I actually released this video for once. So let's go ahead and sit back, grab some popcorn, and get ready to enjoy. Now, ranking the classes is a video I started way back in 2020, around when the pandemic happened, but primarily I started this video right after Screw Attack's Little Hiei vs Sasuke video, and primarily due to the fact that a lot of people, especially Naruto fans, were claiming that Yu Yu Hakusho wasn't really at that level. But now that we reach one of the top tiers and pinnacles, we now have this space to talk about what S-classes are truly capable of. But to keep you up to speed, essentially an S-class is the highest rank a character can be in the series. Anything that's out of the control of the Spirit Defensive Force, which we'll talk about a little bit about them later on. But let's go into the meat and bones of the main claim of many S-class characters. But that main question is, are they planet level? And no, I'm not just talking about regular surface wipe. We mean, can they obliterate the entire Earth without a trace? That is the main question people are wondering, and to be honest with you, that actually comes in many forms, but in terms of statements. We have the statement with Sensui, which claims, "In human world, I can't even use 50% of my power." Next up is Genkai, where she says, "Even if you disliked everything in this world and wanted to destroy it, I no longer have the power to stop you." In both anime and manga, by the way. And overall, these are the two major statements claiming that Yu Yu Hakusho characters scale to planet level. But again, they're just statements. But the key here is to know that with every statement, there needs to be supporting evidence. Just like in Dragon Ball, is Cell actually solar system level? Well, through transitive property, we could find out if he is, or if the statement is an outlier or hyperbole. And I feel Yu Yu Hakusho meets the criteria to say that Sensui is actually a planet buster, and so is Yusuke even in the earlier tiers of the Three Kings Saga, or at the end of Sensui. Now, to prove exactly what I'm talking about, let's dive into the context. We see the term Ningenkai in Daichi. Now, though Daichi refers to the earth and soil, Ningenkai refers to the whole world. In fact, as supporting evidence, Yusuke verbatim says, "Isn't it related? You want to destroy the human world anyway, so do it, rage with all your power." In this context, Yusuke is aware the world is about to end, due to the demon portal, and overall Sensui's raw power, and Sensui's statement. So, Yusuke's saying, "You're going to kill us, so you might as well get it over with." Whereas Sensui follows up by saying, "I love the world, its skies, and the flowers and animals, but I despise its humans." This is a key detail in telling us exactly how powerful Sensui really is, because Sensui is letting us know that he loves this planet and he doesn't want to mean it any harm, including the air, and the skies, and the animals. Overall, Sensui's intelligence as a fighter lets us know he's aware of the effect his power would have on the planet, So Sensui's letting us know that he would not only affect the atmospheric pressure, which is the air, but he'd also affect the skies and every animal on the face of the earth, given the context that he can't use it in human world. Overall, this is just a follow-up statement to give us supporting evidence that he can destroy the planet, but simply won't do it for, of course, plot reasons, since we don't have Dragon Balls in Yu Yu Hakusho to just simply wish everything back to normal. The next follow-up statement is when Genkai tells Yusuke that we're all capable of thoughtless destruction, depending on the mood. Toys, pets, lovers, a country, depending on the person. Yours is just something bigger. This is important because Yusuke has to conflict himself with his own power. He's at a point where nobody on the entire planet or even in other world can literally fight him at all. Keep in mind, Yusuke's mere presence when he was fighting against Sensui was so powerful that it would literally atomize or obliterate people such as Hiei, Kurama, and Kuwabara, who, mind you, were all top tier A classes, which are capable of destroying multiple national units, and as I've said in my last video, characters like Shunjun is actually stronger than that, and yet the mere aura of an S class could obliterate them by their presence alone, which is speaking volumes, as I've stated, because even if you're a multi-country busting character, keep in mind, you can't even stand next to a full power S class fighter. Still don't believe me? Let's go over some transitive property then. So Hiei and Kurama specifically are A class, and Hiei absorbed the Dragon of the Darkness flame into himself. Now, although it isn't to the nth degree, as my last video mistakenly made, it definitely is stronger than a Jiganshi form, which according to the data books, is actually a many-fold times multiplier, which makes a bit of sense. Though in the anime it's at least doubled, it still makes sense for it to be many-fold for at least this variant, because Hiei is now reliant on the Dragon of the Darkness Flame as a multiplier versus just, well, utilizing the Jiganshi form, which is probably why he doesn't use it anymore, because it's not as proficient. Keep in mind, Hiei, after multiplying his strength at least by 5 times, was still absolute fodder, and yes, he got even stronger when Yusuke showed up, which shows he is much stronger than before, at least 10 times stronger, and he is still absolute fodder to just the mere aura of an S-class demon, which should show you that Yusuke and Sensui are clearly many orders of magnitude stronger. Even though that's not what the official Japanese statement claimed, it's still important to add as a factor into this equation. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the upper S classes. Yeah, the upper S classes. Funny enough, the classes and the feats of the characters I mentioned before are not even upper or even mid-tier S classes. They're actually one of the lower S classes. In fact, Sensui and Yusuke are so weak that even a low-mid S class such as Hokushin could easily beat Yusuke while suppressing his energy to a D class off of raw skill alone. Now, the insanity of this is that Yusuke had to actually go to the demon world to fight against Hokushin and many of his other comrades who all held back against him. And what makes it even crazier is that Yusuke and Hokushin are nothing compared to the kings, which we'll later go ahead and talk about how strong they are. But at the bare minimum, we understand that an S-class has to be at least small planetary, bare minimum, even if you go with the lower end interpretations. Now, I've done this in my previous video, but I'm going to do it again because we have new information. Hokushin, despite how powerful he is, has a total demon power of at least 36,000. Keep in mind, Hokushin was still stronger than Yusuke by a large margin, and Yusuke took up to 6 months in order to catch up to him. Now, the reason I know Hokushin is at least more than double Yusuke's power is because Yusuke has more potential than his friends, who all jumped to S-class under the guidance and supervision of Genkai, and yes, they were actually able to double their yokai power in less than 6 months, as stated by Kurama and requested of them, all hitting around the margin of at least a bare minimum of 100,000. yokai. Now, interestingly enough, I actually did a yokai calc on this and how strong Yusuke would be, since we later on find out Yusuke's yokai energy literally hits around 500,000, which we know for a fact is 500,000 because he compares himself to Yomi's son Shura, who wouldn't be awakened until he also hit 500,000. Now bear in mind, I also did a calc for this compared to Ryzen, who's at 1,322,000, which is absolutely ridiculous, but nonetheless, we could still use this to tell where Yusuke's power sits. Typically because people will look at the TP, HP, OP, DP, and SP and claim that you can't really use these as a way to calculate their overall attack potency, but you actually can, because we know OP stands for offensive power, which is going to be very important in calculating how strong Yusuke really is. Yusuke is often compared to Ryzen, so we can just use Ryzen as a comparison to where Yusuke's offensive power sits, by using the formula of 1.3 million divided by 500k, and then taking the OP power of 424k divided by 2.644, you can actually get 160,363 as an approximation for Yusuke's overall offensive power. Now, although a ray gun can fluctuate in terms of power, its general average is at least 5 times the output according to the official statements. So Yusuke's yokai energy would jump to 801,815 if he was to release an average ray gun without even pouring all his might into it. Which, by assertion that Hakusho is double the strength of Sensui, though likely more, it still makes it reasonable that Yusuke would be at least 309.5 times stronger than Sensui, being a planet buster. And of course, under the premise that Sensui is at least able to destroy the human world with at least 50% of his power, this would overall put Yusuke at 619.1 times planet. Utilizing kinetic energy, he is at least 36.80 Yoda tons of TNT, which is large planetary. And yes, I'm going to provide feats that actually support this premise as well. But overall, even characters such as Shura scale to this because this is only Yusuke in base. That's right, base form Yusuke, who Hiei later on is able to match up with consistently. And you know what, just to make it more interesting, I'll show you Shura's attack and what effect it had on someone like Yomi.
Defeat doesn't come easily, but one can always go with grace.
Yep, like we scaled it for Yusuke, that level of attack potency would obliterate even someone with planetary durability more than likely. And guess what?
That should settle that. Wait, what is that? No! I can't see anything! That was my best attack. How can he even be walking right now?
Shura, my son, your ego carries you too high.
Yep, absolutely zero effect. And you know what else? Yusuke scales to that. And guess what? You're probably wondering, how did Yusuke put up a better fight? Well, the answer lies within the series itself. And one of those major reasons is Yusuke can amplify his power by orders of magnitude. And although it doesn't say it verbatim, the context of what kita can mean is in reference to orders of magnitude, which I feel is a little more faithful to the Viz translation accordingly. Keep in mind, order of magnitude by bare minimum is at least tenfold, which I think is reasonable enough considering the monstrous increase Yusuke was able to get, and he was able to turn the tables. But not only did he increase tenfold, he has an ultra ego-like fighting ability where he gets more and more powerful as he fights. That's right, more and more powerful as he fights, like a Saiyan. And when he gets angry, because he's half human, human being emotions increase many-fold. Yes, to the point of where Yusuke was able to overcome a gap difference of 1,020 times. That is no outlier because I have proof and evidence to show you why it isn't. Even lower level E-class apparitions can send Yusuke into orbit, which we're going to go a little bit more into the astral scaling for characters. But let's still focus on the bare minimum of where these top tier S classes go. So yes, Yusuke's power level by this point, it's probably in the 5 millions given he had an anger and a multiplier of his Mazaku form, which he performed this infamous feat. Oh yes, mind-boggling, isn't it? Especially when you consider that Okuninjuru is at least the size of a continent. But it's not just being the size of a continent, it's the fact that you could see the curvature of Demon World. To give you an idea of how Demon World is, Yusuke was running at top speed and still took him 5 days just to get to Horizon's area. We also learned Demon World is as numerous with countries as is stars. By this indication, there's at least billions of stars. Now, is this a hyperbole statement? Likely not, because Koenma also tells us it is endless. So I believe, within due respect, Demon World, bare minimum on Yusuke's low end speed, being a lightning timer and such as an S-class, is at least 100 to 1,000 times bigger than regular Earth would be. Arguably tens of thousands times, depending on how you want to scale it. But we're still not done. In fact, there's even another feat to support planetary levels in Yu Yu Hakusho, based on what Screw Attack scaled for Yomi and Yusuke's final punch. Yusuke had an ability around Sacred Energy level, so at least 10 times more potent than regular Spirit or Demon Energy, so I would say probably 100 times more powerful than he was when he went into his Mazaku state, bare minimum, along with it likely has a similar case of the Sacred Energy, since for the anime only, of course, this is what Kurama and Hiei thought it was, but I think it's still worth mentioning when it comes to the scaling of the characters overall. But basically, I took the same calculations that Screw Attack did, and then I overall changed it up by understanding the real size of Demon World and utilizing a couple of other calcs that would be more consistent within the lore and the overall scaling. As a result, I was able to get a punch attack potency of at least large planet level. And keep in mind, according to the manga, Yusuke had been fighting for 59 hours at this point if we utilize that statement, so this would have been Yusuke not even at his true pinnacle peak or his true potential. Moreover, here are some screenshot images of what the after effect looked like for the entire plane of Demon World, which should kind of tell you that it definitely is on the planetary side, considering how big and how wide of a gap it did to the general atmosphere. Now for the fun part. Hypothetically, how strong would a Yusuke with full max rage of 1,020 times with his overall Sacred Energy multiplier be in terms of his full maxed out potential post Yomi fight? Well, hypothetically, that would be able to increase him by 102,000 times over. If you multiply that by the 36 Yoda tons, oh boy, Yusuke would then sit at a monstrous 3.672 tenatons of TNT, which is the bare minimum of small star level. Now again, this is on a higher end scaling, but on a lower end scaling, he would still be at least dwarf star level regardless. But I still think it's very impressive, specifically because one of the Blu-ray box sets in 2009, which yes, is approved by Yoshihiro Takahashi, literally claims that Yusuke has the power of a small star within his body since he got the spirit wave from Genkai. And honestly, due to the level of transitive property scaling you could do with Yu Yu Hakusho, I don't think it's a hyperbole or outlier at all. To be honest with you, end of series Yusuke being small star level makes a lot of sense, and Yusuke still technically isn't even stronger than Makuro, who was actually holding back in the tournament the whole time. And yes, we understand Hiei is still relative to Yusuke because even a enraged Makuro at full power didn't kill Hiei, but more so just irritatingly hit him hard enough to make him a little injured. So overall, the fact is, Yusuke and Hiei definitely sit in the millions by the end of series, and it's very clear when we see that even lower end fighters such as Chu is not able to beat Natsumi, who, guess what, Natsumi is able to fight Makuro and is stated to be equal or greater than Yomi. Yup, and she's one of Raizen's old-time friends. And she even claims that within a short time span, Chu actually may surpass her. Yeah. If Chu can do it, I'm sure Yusuke and Hiei have no reason to be slagging behind. But as far as power output, I think that is the video for today. I would go into speed, but I've already done a video on that, and you could just simply use the base of power scaling to pretty much get you to speed. It's no surprise that pretty much all S-classes at this point are faster than light, and I don't really have any need to continuously ad nauseum the same points I've made before. Besides, maybe a couple of special statements such as Kuwabara being an S-class as evidence, based on the fact that he claimed that it takes less than a second to one-shot an A-class level fighter, which is the Spirit Defensive Force, and we're talking upper A-class fighters. And keep in mind, Kuwabara, according to the data books, actually fights Yusuke on occasion, and given that he's not being obliterated by Yusuke's aura, I think that speaks for itself. But overall, that should be the video for today. Anyway, the true power of the S-classes in Yu Yu Hakusho, a low S-class is at least planet level, but the upper S-classes, such as the high tiers, are nothing more or nothing less beyond large planet to small star level, and I will stand by that statement firmly. And let's see if you guys do as well. Thank you again for the 1,000 subscribers, and I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Atari HMB, and I'm signing off. Peace.